Can we all please stop being quite so vulnerable? Making yourself vulnerable is not a magic bullet for leadership, or any kind of activity for that matter. It's actually quite a lazy and risky way of getting noticed that can easily backfire. So in this video, I'm going to explain why vulnerability is a bad idea, what to do instead, and how to do it for maximum impact. But before we get stuck in, make sure to subscribe to my channel below to get more videos on Leadership Inside Out. Now, the meaning of words is important, as I'm sure you'll agree. So let's define the key word here, vulnerability, or the adjective vulnerable. It means, according to the Oxford University Press, exposed to the possibility of being attacked or harmed, either physically or emotionally. That's good enough for me. Who in their right minds is going to deliberately and consciously lay themselves open to harm at work unless they're protecting others? Well, it's going to be those who haven't really thought the whole thing through and have just climbed on the bandwagon of the latest leadership fad. Let's take Braden Wallace as our first example. You may remember him as the crying CEO. The Guardian newspaper reported that the 32-year-old CEO of Hypersocial, a marketing agency, had just sacked 2 of his employees and needed to choose between quietly helping the new unemployed pair move on with their lives or turning their misfortune into self-aggrandizing online content. Epic fail. The world turned on him and tore him to shreds. But hang on, wasn't he just being vulnerable? Yes, and he was attacked and harmed as a result. Later, in an interview, he said, "Had I been someone who wasn't able to easily shrug off the negative comments, shrug off the hate, and shrug off these people wishing my family gets cancer, I don't know where I would be emotionally." That statement is evidence of harm, albeit thankfully limited. Someone else could have suffered serious emotional damage. In a survey by Jacob Morgan of nearly 14,000 employees, 73% said they were vulnerable at work and had it backfire. Some would argue that you need a psychologically safe environment in order to reap the benefits of vulnerability. Well, no, that's the whole point. You can't be vulnerable in a safe place. So hopefully I've demonstrated that making yourself vulnerable at work is, in essence, a complete nonsense, when taken literally. Aha, I hear those at the back saying, but that's not what we mean by vulnerability. Which is exactly the stance Humpty Dumpty took, saying, when I use a word, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more nor less. And look what happened to him. He was the epitome of vulnerability, and when he cracked, no one could put him back together again. In 1991, Hollis Harris, the CEO of Continental Airlines, told his 42,000 employees that the company was struggling and he wasn't sure of the path forward. He ended his memo by telling his employees to pray for the future of the company. The next day, Hollis was fired. Vulnerability in leadership can be an ego play, out to get something back, sympathy, kudos, the moral high ground. A while back, I attended the sacking of a sales director by a client of mine. This CEO was so intent on expressing his feelings of guilt and remorse that he put on a toe-curling exhibition of vulnerability that lasted 20 minutes. Meanwhile, I could see the sacked director becoming increasingly angry at this display of hand-wringing, which was all about the CEO and certainly not about the hapless director. There are many things that we are better off not sharing. We have the power of discrimination for a reason. It tells us what goes and what doesn't. General Colin Powell told a powerful story about learning that however cold it is, you must never look cold. However hungry you are, you must never appear hungry. However terrified you are, you must never look terrified. Because if you are cold, hungry and terrified, your soldiers will be too. So if vulnerability is not recommended, what do we do instead? I'm not by any means advocating putting on a pretense that everything is okay when it isn't. A degree of transparency and honesty is generally a good thing. But expressing and externalizing your emotions as a leader may well not be. The first thing is to discriminate between the situation you find yourself in and your emotional reaction to it. A blurring of the two is part of the human condition, but in reality they are quite distinct. If you're going through very difficult personal circumstances, by all means share, but not if you're experiencing overwhelming emotion. Satya Nadella, Microsoft's CEO, shared personal stories about raising a son with cerebral palsy in his book Hit Refresh. By opening up about his personal experiences and the company's need for change, he positively impacted Microsoft's culture. Notice he did not do this when he was vulnerable, far from it. If you don't have all the answers, if you can't see how you're going to get out of a mess that the company or your team is in, go ahead and share it with those people that can help you. But don't communicate the crippling sense of helplessness and inadequacy that may be your reaction to it. That's of your making and is not relevant to the challenge. The key is to be very clear on the distinction between the situation, which is always neutral, and your reaction or response to it, which is of your making and coloured by everything that you are. To share an emotionally charged situation for the maximum positive impact, firstly, make sure that your emotions are in balance. If not, wait until they are. Then ask yourself, is this for the greater good or for your benefit? Be ruthlessly honest about this with yourself. Having said all of this, there is one person on this earth that you can and should be totally vulnerable with, and that's you. Being vulnerable with yourself means being ruthlessly honest without being critical or judgmental. It's recognizing how the beliefs you hold and the stories you tell yourself play out into your thinking, your feeling, your words, and your actions. It's about being open, not to attack or harm, but to truth. Now, don't tell me that you're not making yourself vulnerable in this instance. You can do as much damage to yourself through criticism, blame, and judgment of yourself as to anyone else, if not more. In fact, those who blame and criticize others have usually practiced to perfection on themselves. They then go on to project all these apparent shortcomings onto anyone that happens to fit. And if you've seen others do that, you've probably done it yourself. So to summarize, vulnerability with others is not a condition to aspire to, by any means. It will open you up to the potential for harm and damage. Honesty and transparency may well be appropriate, but only when you assess it from a position of calm and clarity. If you found this video useful, take a second to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to make sure you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.